What's up, y'all? It's your boy D-Switch here, and we are back with another Marvel Rivals video. So a few weeks back, I made a video on general tips that can help you rank up as a strategist in Marvel Rivals, but today I wanted to focus on one strategist in particular. That strategist being Luna Snow. Now, Luna's my favorite strategist playing the game. I have by far my most hours on her, and I've been able to make it into Celestial 2 mostly playing her. I believe you can argue for her being the best support in the game, and that might just be some bias showing through, but her kit is just so powerful and also so fun to play with. She doesn't have the most diverse or advanced kit like Mantis or Loki, but the power in her abilities alone is more than enough to make up for that. With that being said, I thought I could help a couple people who play or wanted to start playing Luna by making a video with 5 tips on how to play her to her full potential. Now this video is going to be more so focused on how to maximize Luna's kit, so if you still wanted some basic strategist tips, I have the video. There should be a pop-up in the top right now, or there's also going to be a link in the description if you want to go back to that video to help you out. Other than that, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and let's get right into the tips. Okay, so before we get into the actual tips, there's a couple things I wanted to go over first. The first thing being going through Luna Snow's kit. First, we have her primary fire, Light and Dark Ice, which fires 3-round bursts that heal your allies or damage enemies. She has the ability Ice Arts, which fires 9 ice shards over 6 seconds that do piercing damage, meaning that it can hit enemies and teammates at the same time, doing healing and damage. Then we have her ultimate ability, Fate of Both Worlds, where Luna starts dancing and creates an aura around her that can heal her allies or grant a damage boost. That ultimate lasting 12 seconds. Then she has the ability Share the Stage, which when you activate, places an auto aura that looks like a snowflake over one of your teammates. And whenever you heal anybody on the team besides that person, it will heal that person up for 35% of the healing that you did to anybody else on your team. And then if you heal that person with the snowflake directly, the 35% healing boost still applies. On her secondary fire, she has Absolute Zero, which shoots out an ice projectile that freezes the enemy for 2.7 seconds. She has the passive Smooth Skate, which gives Luna ice skates after a few seconds of running that allows her to move faster and jump higher. Do be careful with this passive though, because if you try to walk directly left, right, or backwards, it will cancel your skates out. She also has the passive Cryo Heart, which gives her healing over time when she uses Ice Arts or Absolute Zero. And then she has team up abilities Icy Disco, where she's the Anchor, which gives Namor and Jeff more ice powers, and it also gives her a healing bonus, that bonus being 15%. And then she has the team up Frozen Chi with Iron Fist, which creates an ice ring around Luna that knocks back enemies and does a little bit of damage, and it also slows them, and also gives her or any allies in that ring an instant heal. Now that's a full rundown of her kit, and the second thing I wanted to point out is that with Luna, you are going to have to practice your aim, because a lot of her abilities rely on her aim. Make sure you get your aim at least decent with her, because if you have bad accuracy, you're just not going to be that effective on her. Now the first tip I want to talk about is a quick one, but do you remember the Cryo Heart passive we were just talking about? Don't forget about it, and don't be afraid to waste an ability just to heal yourself. Sometimes you might feel like you have to save the abilities for the perfect moment, but there's situations where you don't really have any other option but then to use the abilities to heal yourself. There are times in teamfights where you'll see me throw a YOLO freeze or just start clapping to heal myself. Also, I forgot to point out, I'm going to call Ice Arts clap for the rest of the video, so if you hear me say clap, I'm talking about Ice Arts. There will be times in teamfights when you get low on health or bursted, and you'll have a situation where either your other strategist isn't there because they're dead, they don't have line of sight on you, or there's not a health pack nearby to just heal you up. So you have to be taking the advantage of that Cryo Heart passive to heal yourself mid-fight, because there's no helping you just having the abilities ready if you're gonna die before you even get to use them. Remembering to do this can save your life and help you stay alive for that crucial team fight, or help you stay alive long enough to build up your ult and hold the point longer. So when it comes to situations like these, make sure if you have those abilities to use them, because you being alive can just be that deciding factor to help you win. The second point I want to talk about is optimizing your freezes. Now once you get a hang of its kind of awkward mechanics, it's one of your best defense tools against divers and aggressors. But there's a couple things I want to point out about it that can help you with its usage. One thing I want to point out is when you're getting hard dived or somebody's pushing into you, try not to panic and just throw your freeze randomly, because a lot of the times you're just going to miss and you'll still end up dying. When you have somebody coming to attack you, you have to think for a quick second about who they are and what they can do to you. This is especially a point where it comes to the divers and flankers, because they're all not going to come attacking you the same way. Like a Spider-Man coming to attack you is different from a Black Panther coming to attack you. They're both going to try to like dive on you, obviously, but the way they do it is different. One thing you need to do is try to learn all these characters, no matter who it is, a dive character or not a dive character. You have to try to learn what their patterns are and what they're going to try to do to kill you. For example, with Spider-Man, there's a couple patterns you can pick up on when he's trying to attack you. Like when he does his ability where he webs you and pulls himself towards you, he comes in a straight arc towards you. So if you have that reaction time to aim your freeze, you can line it up to where he is and he's going to come at you with a straight arc and you can freeze him right there. Sometimes if Bucky does the ultimate and he aims at you and you don't die, he'll land like almost directly in front of you and it'll be easy to freeze him because he's going to be trying to kill you. These are just a couple examples I'm pointing out, but when you can learn some of these characters' patterns, it can help you a lot with trying to aim your freezes instead of just panicking when you start getting attacked right away. Another thing I want to point out about the freeze is that you don't always have to use it defensively. You can use it offensively too. Sometimes if you're just waiting for something to happen to you, you'll find yourself just holding that freeze for so long where if you used it, you might have already had it back with the cooldown and you just wasted, there's just a use of the freeze that you didn't have. Now I'm not just trying to use my abilities any type of way, but a lot of the time you'll see my abilities on cooldown because I'm just trying to maximize my usage of them. I'll keep in mind if like there's divers and stuff like that to be ready for those, but I'm not just gonna always hold it and be waiting for that perfect moment where somebody's gonna try to dive me or something like that. It can be as simple as the enemy team pushing, or I freeze one of the vanguards and it leaves their team open because they don't have that one person just sitting there blocking some of the damage, and it can leave an opening for one of your DPS to kill somebody in the back line who doesn't have that extra line of defense. I'll also try to freeze a duelist or a strategist sometimes when the opportunity arises, because if the enemy team's not paying attention, it can leave an opening for that person to get bursted as well. Another way to use your freeze in a way that's not defensive is to follow up on one of your teammates' CC abilities. If you don't know what CC is, it's crowd control, and it's basically the abilities that stop you from playing the game for a second or stun you or slow you down, stuff like that. But there'll be moments sometimes where you can follow up on your teammate's CC and just stun that person for a little bit longer, leaving them open to die. Like sometimes if there's a Bucky on my team and they pull the enemy tank in, I'll try to follow up on that pull with a freeze so that we can just have the opportunity to kill that person before they can get healed up. The timing can be a little bit iffy though, because your Buckies will usually use the uppercut that they have to take that enemy deeper into your team. So just try to take a second to time it or communicate with your teammate what they're going to do so that you can follow up with that freeze and hopefully secure a kill. This goes for almost every CC ability in the game except for Hulk's Exile, because you know nobody else can shoot the person but Hulk to get him out of it. But also right after the Exile, you can still try to freeze him right after the Exile is over. But that's another big way to use your freeze in a way that's not defensive. And just a quick flip back to the defensive side of the ability real quick, but you can also, when you learn those patterns, stop a lot of the big ultimates in the game. There are a lot of ultimates in this game that you can freeze and stop. So if you try to learn also those patterns, it can just be a really big help to your team and make big plays. Yeah, bitch, yeah, hey, clip that. Somebody clip that, please. Yeah. Now the third point I want to talk about is trying to optimize your clap usage. Ice Arts is one of the strongest abilities in the game because of that piercing effect that I mentioned earlier, and it also does a lot of healing and damage. And there's a few things I'm going to point out that you can do to use the ability to its full potential. One thing I want to point out when you're using the ability is to always make sure you're trying to target something. The ability has a long cooldown and a 6-second usage time, so you don't want to just be shooting it randomly. You want to always be trying to optimize the shots that you take. Some people will just continually shoot it over and over, and in the process not really think about the aim because they want to make sure they're getting all the shots out of the ability. But with me, sometimes you'll see me not shoot a shot because I want to make sure it's accurate. Like if I get in a duel, I want to make sure I'm hitting accurate shots, because if I get too focused on just trying to make sure I use all of my shots, they're not going to be as accurate and I might end up losing that fight. So in certain situations, try to make sure that your aim is on point, because the ability has a large hitbox, but it can still miss sometimes. Now the way I primarily try to use it the most is in mid-team fights. I'll activate it and just try to do as much healing and damage as I can at the same time. Because it has that piercing ability, when I'm using it mid-team fight, I'm trying to line up my shots with as many people in the line of sight as I can, because it has a pretty forgiving hitbox and you'll be healing your team, putting pressure and possibly damaging the enemy, and also, which is probably the most important thing, building up a lot of ult charge pretty fast. One use of the clap like that can get you to getting your ultimate that much faster than everybody else. Another good way to use it is like when you get in the duel, like I mentioned before, if you're facing one of those very like shifty and fast moving characters, having your clap available, if you use it can help you with trying to hit that character because it has that big hitbox. Some people recommend not to use your clap in a 1v1 because you lose the ability to critical hit, but sometimes it can be the thing that saves you because it heals you up like we mentioned before, and because of that big hitbox, it can help you hit those shots easier against some of those more annoying fast moving targets. Those are the main ways I try to use it, but there's also situations where I won't try to optimize it and hit as many people as possible because I'll have a teammate that's really low on the side, and shooting them once will just heal them up for a lot. Or I'll run into some of those situations where I have no other option but to use it to save my own life to heal myself. Now the fourth thing I want to talk about is some of the best ways to use your shared stage guard ability. Now one of the best things about the guard ability is that there's no range cap on it. So you can put it on somebody, and as long as you're healing somebody else on your team, they're going to get 35% of the healing that you do to that person. This is part of the reason why for a lot of Luna players, the consensus of what you do is try to put the guard on one of your flanking characters that's going to be in the backline that you don't really focus on too much, or sometimes like one of your flying characters that can be harder to hit in certain situations. It's definitely one of the best ways to go, because if you have a character diving their backline or taking a flank or flying around like crazy, it can help you just not to have to focus on them so much and just focus on what's going on in front of you. Now even though that's usually the best way to use the ability, there's other situational moments where you can use it in other ways too. So in some situations where my tanks are both pushed up like that, taking a lot of damage, I'll put the guard on one and then shoot some regular shots, and then if I have my clap, if I use it and I'm hitting both of them at the same time, the person who has the guard above them is still getting that bonus 35% healing from whatever I hit. So it can just stack up and do a lot for you. Or there can be situations where it's just you and one other person left. If you put that guard on them and you're shooting them, they're still going to get that bonus healing from it. So try not to hard lock on using the ability in only one way. Try to be versatile with it. And also remember that you have it, because there's a lot of people where if the person that was using it dies or that they die, sometimes in the heat of the moment you'll just forget that you have that ability. So just make sure that you're always applying it so you're getting something out of it. Even I have some moments where I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to throw my guard up. Let me put that back on real quick.
And just have our first Luna.
Now the last thing I want to talk about is the usage of Luna's ultimate ability, Fate of Both Worlds. This ultimate is one of the strongest in the whole game, because what it does is when she activates it, it does a burst of 200 healing, and then she can switch between healing and damage. When it's on healing, it does 250 healing per second, and when you switch to damage, it's giving a 40% damage boost. When your team is playing in it with you, it makes y'all damn near unkillable, but it's not an automatic fight winner every single time. What I want to do is point out some things you're going to do before you ult, in the middle of your ult, and when it's ending. What I want you to think about before you ult is to not always be saving it as a defensive mechanism against the enemy team. Sometimes you're going to want to have it against some of those really strong damaging or stunning ultimates, but you don't always have to be holding it waiting for that moment. One reason is that sometimes you'll have another support that has one of those big healing ultimates to where you don't always have to be waiting to try to counteract one of those big damaging or stunning ultimates. You really just want to try to communicate with your teammates who's going to ult first, so you don't both waste one of those very strong abilities at the same time. Another thing is that even though they made some of these ultimates cost more for the supports, usually they're still going to be the ones to build up their ultimates first, because people are usually taking a lot of damage and not dying. So you can be in a situation where you're trying to cap a point and you can build up your ult so fast that you pop it and your team is able to push in and kill the enemy team before their supports can build up their ults, or before they build up any of their big strong damaging ultimates. Another thing to look out for when you're trying to use it defensively is to not pop the ultimate too late. There can be moments where you wait too long and a teammate or even you can die before you can pop your ultimate, or there can be some moments where you get stunned before you can use your ultimate and you die and everybody else dies. This is where the game sense and awareness come into play, because like for example, Doctor Strange, if you don't pop it as soon as you hear him start to say by the eye, he can stun you before you even get your ultimate out and your whole team can lose that fight. Now while you're in the middle of the ultimate, one thing you have to look out for is the fact that if you're being reckless, you can still die. There are multiple things in this game that can still kill you while you're in your ultimate if you're not being careful. For example, if you're not being careful and just standing directly in front of Punisher with no cover while he's ulting, you can get killed through it. Moon Knight ult, if you're in your ultimate and don't move out of it as fast as you can, you're gonna die in there. Scarlet Witch's ult does so much damage that if you're just standing in front of her, doesn't matter what you're doing, you're just gonna blow up because it's like an instant kill. One thing I forgot to mention is that your ult gives you 250 over health, but after like 3 seconds it starts to decay, and also when the enemy team is shooting you, they can take out that over health, and once that over health is gone, you're susceptible to one shots. Hawkeye hits you with the headshot, you're done. If Magic is able to line up her abilities perfectly, you're done. If you stand dead center in the Moore's ult, it does 500 damage, you're done. Even if they're not using all their super strong ultimates, if you just ult and go like way in front and stand in front of the whole enemy team, they can do something that can burst you down and kill you immediately. So when you're ulting, still think about your positioning and don't just go out in the open thinking that you can't die. Another thing I want to point out is while you're in the middle of your ult, you don't always have to stay on healing the whole time. I know it's nice to see your teammates just not dying at all, but sometimes if you don't alternate the damage, all you're doing is just drawing out a fight that you could still potentially lose if you're not making anything else happen. Now a while back they added an update that added a delay to toggling between healing and damage, so you can't just flick it super fast, but it's still okay to switch to damage sometimes if you're assessing the situation, because switching to damage can help your teammates secure some of those kills to win the fight overall. Like I've seriously seen some Lunas where the enemy team was pushed back and their team is still holding up shields and stuff, and they'll still just be on healing the whole time and they're taking no type of damage. You're just wasting value at that point. If your team isn't getting melted and there's no super damaging ultimates up at the time, don't be afraid to switch the damage to help your teammates secure some kills. You can even switch the damage to boost some of your team's ultimates or abilities. For example, if I'm ulting and I have a Bucky on my team and he has the infinite ammo, I'm gonna try to switch the damage for a little bit just for him to get that extra damage while he still has that infinite ammo. Or if one of my teammates is using their ult like a Magneto or an Amora or a Punisher, I'll switch the damage for a second if they're okay, so that they can do the extra damage to secure some kills. Because sometimes what's gonna happen is the enemy team is gonna be able to build or already have one of their support ultimates, and then you're not gonna be able to get any kills because they're just popping it after you're popping yours. Even in some of those moments, if your teammates aren't getting super damaged, if you switch the damage sometimes, you can help them kill some of those people through their ultimates. Like, I've had moments where I switched the damage while an invisible woman popped her ult, and they killed her in it, making her ult disappear. Just remember that you have the ability to switch over the damage and have your teammates take advantage of it. But don't go overboard with it and keep it up too long, or not switch back to healing sometimes, because then your team's gonna die through it and that extra damage isn't gonna matter. Now when you're starting to leave your ultimate, the one thing you need to do is start to back up. When you're in your ultimate, you're gonna be pushing up close with the rest of your team so they can take advantage of your ult and get the boost from it. But as it's starting to end, you need to start backing up immediately. Because now what happens when your ultimate ends and you're still super deep with your team, you're very, very vulnerable versus being in the back. Because most of the time, if the enemy team seems you didn't back up after your ults ended, they will get ultra aggressive and try to go and kill you, and a lot of the times they'll succeed at that. Mostly being due to the fact that it's going to be hard for your team to protect you if you're just standing directly in the middle of them. Another thing to try to be careful about when your ultimate is ending is the enemy team ulting as soon as your ult ends. It's happened to me, I've seen it happen, and I've done it to multiple people, where you see the Luna ult ending as like a Doctor Strange, you fly over the team, and as soon as it ends, you drop down Eye of Agamotto, and now she can't do anything about it and she's going to die. When your ult's ending and you're backing up, make sure you're still trying to look at your surroundings, because you will notice sometimes when Doctor Strange is about to do it, and you can back up faster to counteract that. Or you notice somebody flanking in the back or etc. trying to use their ult on you as soon as your ult ends. So just try to be careful about that too, and you'll be able to use your ultimate so much more effectively. Also, don't get discouraged when you use your ultimate and then the enemy team pops one of their support ultimates right after. Yeah, it can be annoying, but now that they use that ultimate, it gives your teammates with their ultimate abilities a chance to try to do something once that ult is gone. You can look at it as both those ultimates canceling each other out. And then the last thing I want to mention is that if the enemy team uses a support ult and gets extra aggressive, try to wait a little bit before you pop yours, and try not to do it instantly as soon as they do theirs. Because if you can just wait a couple seconds before they pop theirs, your ultimate's gonna last a little bit longer, and you can try to use that to take advantage and get aggressive and get a kill.
I say you really old strange motherfucker. I see old strange motherfucker.
Alright y'all, so that's all I have for the Luna Snow tips today, and I hope if you didn't know these things already, they can help you to be better when you're playing as Luna. This character is super strong, and if you're using some of these tips that I brought up, it can help you just be that much more impactful in your games. If you watched this video all the way through to the end, thank you for being here. I really appreciate y'all. If y'all have any tips that you want to leave in the comments, go ahead and leave them below, or if you have something you disagree with, we can talk about that in the comments as well. With that being said, I gotta finish editing this video, so again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. I always appreciate when y'all do that, and with that, I'm out. Peace! No rocket.
Yo, like, who is this guy?
More top. Good shit, guys. Let's go!